Hello there, welcome to Lisa Horton Crafts YouTube channel. My name is Claire Newcomb. I'm with you today with a pre-recording, so this will stream live initially for the first time on Tuesday, but of course it will be sitting on the YouTube channel for you to watch at your leisure at whatever time, and to be there always as a reference point for you. But I'm recording this today and I'm coming to you with this brand new collection, the studio collection, the Floral Wishes, which has just been launched. It's a complete collection. So we have four items that I have here. They all work together to create beautiful projects. You can see Lisa has got some slightly new branding now, which is really nice, really fresh, really modern, but it's still obviously the Lisa Horton Crafts green, the lovely sage green that we all know and love. We still have the quality, of course, of the products, and we have, for the first time in a little while, some lovely new layering stencils. So the whole collection is called the Floral Wishes. So we have a set of layering stencils. We can see that this is the main image here. This is the main image that we are working around in the whole collection. This is a set of 5x7 stencils here. So you have 7 stencils. I should be using this a little bit later on, so you'll see how these build up to create that lovely image. But what is unusual, and what Lisa hasn't done for a little while for us, is actually create a stamp set that goes alongside excuse me, goes alongside the layering stencil, so everything coordinates in size and all layers beautifully. The stamp sets, of course, can be used on their own. They don't have to be used with the layering stencils, or even indeed the dies that we have also. But if you want to layer all the different types of media, all the different types of crafting, then obviously you can do that across the board. So the stamp set also is a larger stamp set. You can see the size of it here. We have an awful lot of stamps available here. Let me just bring in just move out of the way so you can see. Apologies, I need to get a clear background for you can see the stamps. Okay, let's turn that over. So you can see the stamp sets that we have here. So we have this large initial image, which of course correlates with the layering stencils and of course the dies, but you also have the accessory stamps around here as well, so you can embellish and decoupage and add extra bits to the main image. So you have the foliage sprigs, you have some buds or flower buds, you have the individual flowers in different sizes, so you can actually layer, mat and layer with these. And we have actually a good collection of sentiments in beautiful font as well. This one I particularly like, it's quite shaped, and this one is lovely. I used this one not so long ago. I've made another sample that I've made here. This is a purely flat, you can see here, completely flat. There it is, just a single sheet. So I've done some masking to create the band across the middle with COLOURSHIFT ink, so you have a lovely sheen there. And I was able to overstamp onto this coloured band with this stamp here in the black ink, so you can see just how effective that is. These images here are all stamped with the Swift Dry ink. So this was the Flint Swift Dry. I stamped it with secondary ink, so you can't see the grey outline. I just used alcohol pens to colour those in. So it's a really nice one if you want to just do colouring. So if it's been a while and you are a colorist, then these stamps are going to be absolutely perfect for you for that, because say you have the beautiful line work that you can work within, but say equally they do work with the layering stencil. So we have a really nice large set of stamps there. These stamps are the clear stamps, so you will need a stamping platform or an acrylic block to use those. Then of course, as I said, we have the die set as well, again corresponding to this main image that we have in the layering stencils, and it's an A6 set of dies, but you get an awful lot for your money. So you have the sentiment, so you have happy birthday sentiment here, which is different to the sentiments that you have on the stamp sets. You also have the individual flowers, and you have the little rosebuds and the foliage sprigs here, and you also have these two larger dies which are connected to the main image, of course. Now I'm going to bring in the stamp set and just show you that if I overlay this die, let's get the orientation right, if I overlay this die onto that main image there, you can see that if you were to stamp the image and colour that out, you'll be able to, let me just switch onto that other camera there, and hopefully I can show you. It's a bit tricky to show you. Yeah, I've just overlaid the die there. So if you wanted to just stamp the image, colour it, and you'll be able to cut that out with the outline die. Equally, this will of course cut out the stenciled image as well, because it will be the same size. But equally, you have this second die, which is of the main image also. But what this will do, this will cut out the individual elements of that main image. I'll just bring that die set in again and overlay that. So if you can see here, you'll overlay that over the main image. It corresponds perfectly well, and again it will do on the stenciled image as well. And you'll be cutting out different elements, so you'll be able to do your paper piecing using that die as well. Now this collection, you can have the collection as a whole, or if you just want to get the layering stencils, then you've got the option of either having the layering stencils and the die set. They would work really nicely together, or the layering stencils and the stamps would work really well, or you could have the stamps and the die set. So there's a combination suited to everybody's particular way of crafting, particularly if you're not going to go for the set as a whole. Now there are elements on these dies, and if you look at these ones here in particular, this flower, you have one cutting edge which is all the way around the outside, but this metalwork in the middle will actually act as an embossed feature. So if I show you one that I've just cut out here, and if I just tilt that towards the light, actually this is the smaller size one, so let's show you that in turn. So you will be able to stencil these images or stamp them and colour them, and then when you cut them out, obviously you cut them out as the flower as a whole, but then you will have a certain amount of embossed detail within that flower as well, which hopefully you can just about see there. So over the coming weeks, and as different design team members make their samples, and whether I use this again or Cheryl will use this on a live, or even Lisa. Lisa will have done her Friday Night Live, where she would have done a real comprehensive launch of this and take you into a real deep delve into everything that this set can achieve for you. So that will be available to watch on the YouTube channel as well. That remains there, even though it goes out live. It's recorded and it's saved on YouTube for further reference. Then, just as another accessory piece that goes really well with the set, we have the Floral Wishes trellis set. So this is another die set. You have 3 dies here, so you have the ability to make shaped panels if you to use these dies individually. So you have 2 different shapes there. You could die cut them together, and then you have the ability to make frames, which are really lovely. And then of course you have this trellis work here as well, which can add a really lovely detail to any of the cards and act as a super backdrop for any of your stamping or your die cutting here. So this is the trellis that's already cut. So if you want to cut this into the card blank to create like a trellis aperture, then you wouldn't use these outside dies. But if you wanted to cut it and have it free as a panel like this, which you don't have to use this trellis panel with the Floral Wishes set, you can use this with any other set, but you would die cut this main die and put a frame around the outside like that as well, and then you'll have a standalone piece. So I'm going to get stenciling. Now I'm using my Ultimate 1 with you today because it has a stamping platform attached to this here. As you can see, normally I would use my Ultimate 2 and I would turn it round so my pegs are on the side, but I don't want to swap and change too much in the live in this video with you today. So I'm going to do my stenciling. Unusually for me, actually, I'm going to do this as the Ultimate is set up, say Ultimate 1. So I'm going to bring in my stencils and say there's 7 stencils in this particular set. They are 5x7 stencils, but I'm stenciling onto 6x6 cardstock, or it's the ish card, it's the 6x6 ish cardstock, and you can see that that main image is able to fit on there perfectly. So the colours I'm using today, I'm definitely using Albers Ochre, which is one of Paola's blending inks. I just love the colour of that one, and I may add a little bit of the grapefruit. Just I'll see how I go. Actually, let me just get my brushes down for that now before I continue, so I don't lose my flow. So I may use some of this grapefruit colour just as a touch, just to add a little bit of shade in. Then I have a various collection of blues. Actually, I want to do something a little bit different. So I have Lagoon Punch as well, which is really nice colour, but I'm going to focus on Painted Eggshell and then perhaps use these other blues, or either Paola's navy colour or the tourmaline blue or the Lagoon Punch, just to add a little bit of shade in as well. So we're going to start off with the foliage, as we can see here. So Painted Eggshell. It's been a long time since I've done some layering stencils with you, so I've missed it actually. I really like layering stencils. So I'm going to start off with the Painted Eggshell and the first layer here, and as always when you do the layering stencils, this first layer that you put down is to be the lightest, because you will be adding more detail with layering the subsequent layering stencils on top of this. So you don't want to go too dark at this level and then not be able to add the detail on top. So I'm just going to do this quickly. So I think it's going to be quite an involved card. I'm going to be cutting into the card blank as well, but I shall be doing that a little bit later on for you. So I'm going to put this first layer down. Now, as always, when I do layering stencils, you go in order. You start with number 1 and you work the way through. When I take the stencil off, I take it off, I turn it over like a book page and just put that beside me. And I do that with each of my stencils, so I know that when I come back to them and I pick up all the pile of stencils again, I know that they're going to be all in order. That's just the little way I work. So if this is the first time that you're watching these stencils being used and you just need a little hints and tips, then that's just a nice little one to get you started. You will of course find your own way of working with these products as well, but it's nice just to give you a few tips just to get started. Now you can see with the second stencil coming in, we've got some new areas, so you can see through the stencil. Of course, we're going on to a white fresh new card again, but then other areas we are layering over ink that we've already laid down. So these areas, of course, we can go a little bit darker, and even though I'm still using the same color, I'm still using Painted Eggshell, the layering effect, the tonal layering effect works really well. Now the way that I lay down the ink, you can go completely solid and you can put as much ink into the aperture as you can, and sorry, make that a solid color as you like. The way I like to work is work from the center and imagine that I'm working in a circle. So then we have this like graduated effect that you can see coming in here, and I think that just gives us a real nice element of shading without working or thinking about it too much. So I work from the center, so all the areas closer to the center of the design, always in the way that I stencil in particular, are always darker. And you can see as I'm moving away the stencils to go to the new one, you can see that that ink and the tonal effect is layering nicely there. So we're on stencil number 3. So this is where I can change color and I can bring in the yellow colour. This colour I think is so gorgeous. I really oh, we have 2 lots of there. I've got lots of brushes for this colour, so it just shows that I really like using it. So this is one of the newest of the matte blending inks. It's picked by Paola. This is Albers Ochre. It's a lovely buttery yellow. So this is going to be my base, and I'm same thing again. I work from the centre of the stencil and I go in circular motions on as I work through. So I'm using a different type of brush this time. That's entirely up to you how you want to use your brushes. So as I say, work from the centre outwards, so all the areas closest to the centre are always going to be darker, and then I use what's left on my ink just to work out towards the outer edge of those petals there. And again, that just gives us really nice shading. It gives us that really nice sort of airbrush look without trying too hard. So make sure we do this one here. Now I did want to go slightly alternative with my colours today. Obviously blue is not the usual colour for leaves, whatever, but I really like blue and yellow together. I've got a grey and yellow card going on, so I just thought the colours would just look really nice, and it just adds a nice modern twist. Look, I think we are allowed to have a little bit of artistic license when we come to stenciling. So this is a lovely pale colour, and it does build up, as you can see here, but it's so easy to keep nice and pale, so we will be able to layer any other colour onto that. So stencil number 4. So we come into this internal part of the flower. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to work off the main part of the stencil first, just to, I'm going to pick up my ink. I'm going to take off the majority of the ink onto the stencil material first before I work into the center of this flower. Then that just ensures that I get a really nice smooth blend, because this is quite a large area to be blending into. And by working onto the stencil material first, you're using it like a palette, so you're working the ink into the bristles of the brush first, and that ensures that you get that really nice smooth blend when you come onto the cardstock there. So I'm going to do this one here, perhaps go a little bit darker there. And we've got the outer petals of this little flower, which I might try and do a little bit darker actually. So I might come in. Now these are smaller apertures, and I'm just swapped brushes just so the one that's a little bit smaller, that just makes it a little bit easier to get into those smaller panels, or those smaller apertures there. And that is the beauty of Lisa's packs of stencil brushes. They come in 3 colours. Now I've been on Lisa's design team for a long time, and I've over the years since the stencil brushes were developed and introduced, then I've been working my way through and collecting a set of brushes, a set of 3 brushes for each of the stamp colours, the ink colours that we have. So if that isn't a possibility for you, then a nice way to actually collect the brushes is to work in colour family, colour. So have a set of stencil brushes for your yellows, a set of stencil brushes for your blues, one for your greens, your turquoises, except, you know, for example. So it does mean then that you can have a set of stencil brushes of all different sizes for each of the colours. Now, as I was talking there, you can see that I was just working into all of the areas. This area here is a lot darker, so when I take that away, that's a nice contrast to the internal section here. I'm just taking this away and just having a quick look at the centre panel that I've just stenciled there. I quite like the look of that. I've got a nice distinction with what I stenciled on the outside, so I'm happy with that. If at any time you're not happy with the level of colour that you've introduced in any one stencil, you can always come back. So if I wanted to add a bit more colour onto these floral ones here, then I could come back onto stencil 1, pop this back onto the peg system and just work into the aperture there. So that is the beauty of working with the Ultimate, whether it be 1 or 2, they both work in both the same way. They both come with this silicone mat, which, although it's not a tacky mat, just the nature of the silicone material really does hold your cardstock in place, so it gives you that peace of mind that that isn't going to shift. So I've come in with stencil number 5. We have another layer of the petals going on here, and I think it might be time just to come in with a slightly different color, just so as I can get the feel of those petals sort of turning over. So I'm coming in with the grapefruit color here. I don't want to go too bold with this. I don't want this to be sort of clearly orange, but just layering this orange color over the, or the grapefruit color over the yellow or the ochre color that I've already used will give us that distinction. So I'm going to come in with that orange. It is actually a really soft orange. It's like a peach melba sort of color. If you can see these two colors together, they really do complement each other really nicely. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come in with that orange or the grapefruit color in all of those areas there, and just a tiny little bit in here, just so it's slightly different. And then I'm just going to have a little look, and you can see how that actually gives us a good bit of shading. Now what I can do now, because I've put the orange on first, or the grapefruit colour on first, I'm going to come in with the yellow again, or the ochre colour, and I'm just going to go over the top of that. And because we have a base of that grapefruit colour, it's really going to change the shade of that yellow that I put on top. So again, this is just going to make this cohesive with the rest of the flower that we've stenciled in yellow, but because we've layered that orangey colour underneath, it's really going to sort of give that yellow colour a real boost. So you can see there that we've got a good level of shading going on. So stencils 6 and 7. So number 6 is going to add a lot of the floral detail into the centre of this flower. And again, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in with a larger brush and do the ochre colour. And I'm going to go quite heavy on that, because we want that detail to really show. And once I've gone as heavy as I can, or I think I can manage with the ochre colour here, I am going to come back in with the grapefruit colour again, just to give this last floral layer a boost. So we can come into this layer here. So I'm just going to take that away and just see how that looks at this stage. That's actually worked out really nicely, but I want to add just another level of shading. And what I can do, again, come in with the grapefruit colour with a smaller brush and just work into the outside areas. These outside areas, you can see a really small fine detail, so I can work into those. And then once I've done that, I'm going to work into the centre, but I'm only going to go around the outside. I want to keep the majority of this centre area in the ochre colour. So I just want to have that two-tone on the inside of that flower. And what that I can do is go round in a circular motion. You can still see that I've still got that blend. You can still see that yellow coming through in the centre there. So that gives us a really nice blend. And perhaps if I can just show you that on that closer camera, you can see how that blend works. Okay, last stencil. And we're coming into the centre of the flower. So I think I might change up the colours. So we want something quite dramatic, I suppose, for the centre. So we need something quite definitive just to make these flowers pop. And then also we have the connections here that connects the buds to the rest of the flower. So I think what I might do is actually come in with Lagoon Punch. Shall I come in with that? Now this is quite a dark colour, and this is a colour shift colour, so we have an element of shimmer in this. So I'm just going to use what's on the brush initially, so I'm not so I'm not overwhelmed with the colour that we have. You can see it is quite a dark colour, so I've picked up a tiny amount from the ink pad and just working onto the stencil to start with, just to spread the ink out into the brush before I work that into these areas. That just allows me to control the level of colour that I'm adding into the stencil and build that up. Now I'm just going to work into the centre of the flowers there. So obviously I'm layering a blue type colour onto a yellow, so that's going to go sort of green in the centre there, but that's fine because that will really make that image, it will really ground the image. It will give that floral element of a centerpiece. So I'm concentrating while I'm stenciling there. Okay, so we can see now when I take that away, that's really sort of brought that together. Yeah. So that's the stenciling done. Now it's at this stage, what you could do, you can bring in your dies. I'm not going to move my stencil in a minute because I want to overstamp that, and I want to have everything lined up. But you could use this detailed die, and you'll be able to die cut that out, and basically you'll be able to paper piece the image back together again. And in doing that, because you're paper piecing, you can then create different levels and decoupage, so you can create a lot of dimension into this flower if that's the way that you wanted to do that. Equally, you could stencil this 2 or 3 times and then create the elements. So again, it'll give you the different elements to build the different layers into the flower. You can also die cut the flowers out of the center. Again, as I say, this fits perfectly into that center there, so you could be able to just die cut that out. You'll be able to, if you were to stencil this a second time, you can just stencil that flower image in the same colors, decoupage or die cut that out, and then you'll be able to stick that element on top as well. So then you're building layers essentially. So what I want to do is show you how the stamp will layer over the top of this. So I'm just taking off that large stamp here. So the first time you take this off, you just need to peel it off really gently. Just take your time. It's bonded onto the carrier sheet really well when they're manufactured like this. So it's only this first time that you have to be particularly careful taking this off, and just peel it off just really slowly, just like so. Next time you go to use this, that will come off that sheet an awful lot quicker. So to stamp this, now I'm just going to move this a little bit because I want to line up the images in here. So excuse my head. So what we want to do is line up where we've stenciled with that stamped image, and a good way to start, or a good place to start, apologies, let me just move this forward just so as I can see what I'm doing, so you're not seeing the top of my head all the time, is to work on this central area here and just make sure that those stenciled areas are fitting within all the corresponding areas of the stamp there. So just take a little bit of time just to make sure that that's all in place. That looks good to me. So this is where the stamping platform is ideal and comes into play here. So what I'm going to do is find my magnets. I'm going to make sure that my cardstock is attached well, so I'm just going to use the magnets to make sure that that doesn't move out of place. You need to pick up your stamp. Just lift it gently because the stamp may have got stuck slightly to your cardstock, and obviously you don't want that shifting, but that's where the magnets actually come into play and keep that in place. So I'm going to get my Swift Dry ink, and I think I'm going to use a grey, so I'm going to use Flint. So I'm going to ink up my stamp. Because I've got a grey background, I don't want to go too dark and harsh with the black. There would be other times that black is absolutely perfect for this. Now the Swift Dry inks are perfect for detailed stamping. They are a solid ink pad, so it makes it nice and easy to ink up your stamp here. So it can come in, and we know that that image hasn't shifted, so I can stamp that down there, gently lift away. You can see now that all those details that you have stenciled, all it's doing is just outlining the stencils, and you've got that beautiful image. And I think that gives it a real nice, fresh, modern look to the stencil, and it's really nice with the grey as well. It makes this come to life. Now, if you saw the way that the image was beforehand, you don't have to stencil that. Sorry, you don't have to overstamp that. You might want the softer look. The perfect thing with sets like this is that you have the option, and you can make 5, 6, 7, 8 cards, all completely different, and just use different variations. Now, what I am going to do is to just take this die. You see, this is the outline dart, and I'm just measuring it up onto a piece of A2 actually, and that's interesting for you to see. It doesn't quite fit onto a piece of A2 cardstock, not quite. So you will need something larger. So I'm going to take a piece of just white cardstock, and I'm just going to die cut this. So bear with me a second. So I'm going to come back to you. So imagine now that you had this, we've stamped out the coloured image here. You'd have your piece like this, and you'd have all of these elements here inside that you'll be able to paper piece back in. So you could just die cut this out on coloured cardstock. You don't even need the stencils. You could just use coloured cardstock and then paper piece the image back together. Or you can do what I'm doing now, and you can die cut this out. You can keep all of these elements if you wanted in white, or remember, these could also be the stenciled coloured images that you're die cutting out. But I'm just going to take all those pieces out now, because what this detailed die also does, it gives you that outline that we've just stamped. Just take a little bit of time, pop all of these elements out, which come out really easy. Possibly if I'd have run this twice through the die cutting machine, they might have fallen out a little bit quicker, but the die cuts perfectly well. So there we are. And sometimes it's nice for you to see us do this in real time as well. I might need to get a pokey tool to help me with them last bits. Hopefully what you can see now is that all of these individual elements do work to get individually, so you don't need to necessarily get the entire collection. Of course, that is nice if you can, but if you some people are not stampers, so you can just use the die cuts, in which case you can use the stenciling then to colour your die cuts, or you can just die cut from different coloured cardstock and build the image that way. Now I've done this with white cardstock. I wanted to see just how fresh this is. Oh, there's a piece there. Okay. And then what you can do, of course, if you wanted to, you can layer this over your stamped image or your stenciled image. You wouldn't necessarily need to stamp underneath, but I think you do still see some of those stamped details coming through from underneath there, so that does work as well, and that just looks really nice. It gives a whole different dimension actually to the look of the die cuts, because obviously your colour then is in recess, a bit like a stained glass window, and I think that just gives a really nice fresh floral look as well. So there's lots of different ways to do that. Now I'm happy that I've stamped the image now, so I'm free to take my image off of the Ultimate, because obviously I've done all my stenciling, so I don't need to go back in with the stenciling. Obviously by keeping it in the same position, and I've taken my stamp away now, keeping it in the same position does mean that you can repeat stamp if you need to, if there are any areas that you've missed. So there's our image. Really nice and modern. I really like that stamped look around the outside. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do now is come in with various elements and start building the card. So we have, bring all these elements in. So we have our outline die. So we have the detailed die. Again, what you could do, laying that over the top there, you could die cut that out, and again you'd have this type of image, which then you could repiece back in if you wanted to. You have your outline die, which is what I'm going to use, so I can die cut this image out as a whole. So I'm just going to die cut that now. Okay. I just needed that little bit of tape there just to make sure that die didn't shift, and it's so easy to line up that outline die with your image. And look at that, isn't that, I mean, that it just gives you such a professional look because you've done the stenciling first, and you can just see how everything is so precise and so clean. The beauty of the way that Lisa designs, you've got that confidence that you can create something beautiful. I mean, even if you were just to take your time and just stencil this, I don't know, 4 or 5 different times in one sitting in different colorways and die cut them, you know that you have that element there to use. Again, I'm still quite liking it when I put that white over the top as well. Doesn't that give that a whole different look? But remember that you could stencil this a number of times and die cut just the flower, and then build that into the center as well. So many different ways. It really does play to everybody's style of crafting, I think. So whether you are a stamper or you prefer inking and using color, or if you like a die cutting, there's so many different ways to use this. Now I'm going to bring in the card blank and start building this card. So I'm square card blank, and I've covered the inside of the card with, I'm using Lisa's white core card. So I've used from the pastel collection, and I've used from the white and grey collection. So I've covered the front in the grey, the inside with the lemony colour, which I think works really well with Paola's ochre colour there. Now what I want to do is shape the front of the card, and I see that, and you can just put that against the grey. I think it just looks so fresh and modern, doesn't it? We can layer this. I have the trellis, so we could just simply layer with a little bit of trellis like that onto the front of the card. We could add a little bit of the lemon or the yellowy colour from the inside and put that as a frame around the trellis, and add the flower onto there. Now I did die cut the, you can see from the die set here we have a sentiment that you can die cut out, which is different, as I said, from the sentiments in the stamp set. You can die this cut out, get my teeth back in. You can die cut the sentiment, which is what I've done here, birthday wishes, in the same colorway, and you can, let me glue those together now so you can see how those come out. You can, a double layered sentiment, which I think is always nice. And the way that Lisa does the layer for these sentiments, she doesn't make them too large, which I think is really nice. I mean, I like to have the double layered look, but I still like to keep the daintiness of the font as well. I don't then like the font on the second layer to be really, you know, to be too bulky. So Lisa has got, for me, the sizing just right. I think it's just perfect. So I'm just adding that little bit of glue there. I need tweezers now. So we can layer that onto there. Now I do like using pale colours. Apologies if you struggle to see that a little bit. Oh, there we go. You can see that on there. That works out really nice. So we could simply just create the card and pop that onto there like that. You can adjust how the flower goes onto the front of the card. It really doesn't matter. And say it's as simple as that, then you have a lovely card created. Now, I didn't line the inside of the card for no reason. I had an idea in mind. What I want to do is take the outline die again from the die set here. Hazel's theme. So I'm just going to look at the orientation of what the image that I've coloured here. It just makes that a little bit easier for me to visualise and make sure that I get my die in the right orientation there. What I want to do is shape the front of this card before I attach my flower onto there. So that's the way that it's working. So I'm going to put the die there, and I'm going to run this through the die cutting machine. So the way I'm going to do this is to open up my card blank. So I'm only obviously die cutting the front cover. Let me get my cutting plates, because this is the important part. I don't want to die cut the whole thing, because then obviously I'm left with no panel on the front of the card. So I want to cut away a certain amount of this panel, so the yellow underneath shows through. Now you can plan this beforehand. There's my T ruler, and the way to do this is, bear with me, I'm just getting my ruler out. Pop that back up there. So you can work, you can either cut away half of the front of the card blank, or a third. I think any more than that, it sort of, for me, looks slightly off balance. It's entirely up to you, but I'm just going to work probably about a third. I think that's the way that I like to do that. So not quite half. So what I'm going to do is just put my, visualize where I want the panel to come away from the card, and I'm just going to draw a faint line on either side of the die there. I don't need to worry about the inside. That line there is going to give me the indication of where I want to stop die cutting. And by that I mean when I layer my sandwich together for the die cutting and the cutting plates, let me just move all my inks out of the way a little bit so I've got a bit of space. Okay, if I can show you this. The only time that you will die cut something is if it's sitting between the sandwiches on the cutting plates, okay, on the cutting platforms. So anything that isn't between the sandwiches of the cutting platforms won't die cut, okay? So that's the logic behind what we're going to do now. So what I want to do is create my cutting sandwich, but I only want to die cut away this section here. So what I want to do is create the sandwich up to that line that I drew on the front of the card blank, and that is the line that indicates where the sandwich has stopped. So anything beyond this won't die cut, okay? So you can see now everything that is squished, technical word, squished in between the cutting plates on this cutting platform. Now all of this area will die cut. So you can see how I've layered that up. I'm going to keep that putting together. It's not as complicated as it looks. It makes sense once you've actually got hold of this. So I'm just going to take this to the die cutting machine. Actually, what I'll do, just so you can see this live, I'll see if I can manage to bring this into view for you. Hopefully it won't shake everything around too much, and I might need to turn this on its side. So I'm going to put my panels back through. My cutting plates are still lined up along that line that I've already pre-selected. So I can run that through. Obviously the majority of this isn't going to be doing anything. So once it reaches that point where the die is going through, the rollers are going to bite. You can still see that we are still lined up with that line that I predetermined before, and I'm just going to run that through the machine. Now that clunk there just signifies that the areas that I put together to actually die cut on the plate have gone through. So it means I can take the sandwich through, take that away, and then I can remove my die. Now you can see how important it was to have taped that into place. Now, I was just checking that that had cut, because obviously because I'd lined the front of my card blank first, I was cutting through 2 layers, Lisa's dies and machine. I'm always confident that they are able to cut through at least 2 layers. So I'm cutting through the layer of the card blank, which is thicker than the cardstock. And obviously do make sure that you only do 1 layer of the card blank. So lay your card flat when you do that. So make sure that I don't lose my die. Now let's put that back into place. Just there. Now you can see that that's coming away, but that shaped part of the card hasn't come away because we still have these areas. Now this is where these lines really come into play, because you can take a pair of scissors or craft knife and craft ruler if that's the way that you like to cut. Probably not a trimmer or a guillotine, that would perhaps not work quite so well. But what you want to do is just use those lines and a pair of scissors to cut along the lines and just tip to the point where you reach the die cut in there, and then that will just pull away. So just make sure that you can move those tabs, and then we'll do exactly the same here. You can see that I've still got my pencil line there, and I just need to go, let me bring in something here to show you. So that's the line that I drew here that corresponds to the one that's down there, and I just want to snip from here all the way till it reaches where the point where the die cutting starts, that was created by the die itself. So just snip along here. Again, I like using my larger scissors for this, and then just make sure you've reached that to make the two cut areas meet, and just take that away. And now we can see that we have a lovely shaped card, and we can see that lovely colour popping through from the inside of the card. You know, you can tidy up those cuts if your drawn lines are still visible. You just take a little bit of a rubber just to remove those, just tidy that up. But you've got a lovely, nice, neat cut edge there, nice beveled edge, because you've used the die cutter. And then what you can do, you can see that we can now pop that onto the front of the card. All matches perfectly. Now, before I stick anything down, what I want to do also is to add my trellis panel. So we can add that onto the front there, and you can start seeing that we can start building our layers as we would do a traditional card blank. Now I have the frames that I created as well, so I just want to have a little look. I don't know if I want to use the lemon frame there, or if I just want to keep it simple and go with the grey. Don't know. Let me have a little look. Now what I'm doing, I'm just putting this up and have a little look on the screen, actually, because sometimes you have a better feel for these things on the screen than you do actually in real life. And quite often what I do, before I stick a card down, I will put it together with different colour combinations, take a photo with the different combinations, and then just scroll through my photos, and sometimes that actually gives me a better view of what it is that I'm looking at. I don't know why, but if you find the same, then that might just be a nice little trick for you to try. Now I might go with the yellow and layer that over the top. Now what I want to do also, just to neaten things up, because my trellis is overlapping those areas there, which I'm not a fan of. So I think what I might do, I'm just going to position the trellis where I like to have it, just there. That's what I'm going to do. And then I'm just going to make a little mark here. Now you could take scissors and just cut around this area here, or you can just take a little mark alongside where the line that you decided was going to be on the card blank. And I'm just going to take that on the trimmer and just trim the whole thing down. A lot of it's going to be hidden, so it doesn't matter that we're taking a lot of this away. Again, you could have trimmed it around the around the flowers if you wanted to. 6 and 2 3s really, but I just need, I think it'll just look a lot neater tidied up, so it's not stretching over the shaped edge of the card. So trim that down to size. Obviously this needs to go on first before, where's my glue, before we put the flower on. So I'm just going to put this on quickly. We can do a nice straight edge. Again, these fine tipped glue pens are ideal for something so delicate as this. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit of glue, not on every single area. Obviously, when you're at home, you'll have more time to do this more accurately. So I can just layer this down here so that you can see we work into that line of the card there. I think that just tidies everything up really nicely. So we can layer that like so. Actually, I'm just sitting here, I've got my windows open. It's a glorious day out there today. I can hear the birds singing. I can feel a nice breeze coming in. It makes such a difference when it's bright outside, doesn't it? Okay, so we have that layered. Now I can add this to the front of the card. Because we're working onto the shaped area, I would say make sure you go all the way around all the areas, because you don't want anything sort of coming loose. Okay, so we can just match that up to the shaped area there. There we are. And we've got a nice neat edge on the inside here because we've used the die cut to actually cut that shape, so that's nice and important. And then we have our lovely sentiment that we can add anywhere really. We could put that on just on the inside, or we can perhaps use a bit of foam pads to put that on the outside, or even one of these smaller ones actually that we could stamp just there might be an idea. So then we're not covering up that lovely image on the front. Or even that with love as well. Actually, let's stamp that. That would look really nice there. What I'm going to do, I'm just take off that little stamp here. You can see on the front of the packaging here that it looks lovely in the yellow. We could stamp that, any of these little stamps, directly onto this one here, but I think we'll add a little bit of a layer. We'll use this piece of card. I need a stamping block. We'll use this piece of card that we've die cut the image from. I'm going to use the grey again, the Flint Swift Dry, and I'm going to stamp that up. And stamp that onto there. And you can see how lovely that is. It always stamps. I've always got confidence that Lisa's stamps stamp beautifully. Now with something like this, it's important not to over ink the stamp, because let me show you. The detail of this stamp is engraved into the stamp. So what you don't want to do is flood those engraved areas with too much ink. So it's always to do, particularly if you're using a stamping platform, it'll be better to put a little bit of ink on and stamp repeated times to build up the intensity of the colour, and make sure that you clean that really well so you have the ink taken out of those engraved areas. That would be a good piece of advice using a stamp like that in particular. So we can just cut that out. I think I'm going to get a lot of use out of this stamp. I've already used this on the other card sample that I've made with this set. So yeah, I can see myself reaching for this particular stamp sentiment quite regularly. So I'm just rounding those corners a little bit. You don't have to do that. That just takes off the little bit there. And then we can just pop that on. Oh, we can pop that onto the front of the card, and we can use a foam pad for that. I think just a little bit of height for that particular detail, I think will work really well. As I say, you are more than able to build up these layers as well with all the different elements that you have in the stamp set, using the same techniques that I've used previously, and say stencil this out 2 or 3 times, use the dies to cut out all the different elements and build those layers there. Oh, excuse me. So that is our first introduction for you into the Floral Wishes set. I'm sure it won't be the last time that you see this used. The design team has really gone to town with the samples on these as well. They are glorious. So there's so many different things that you can do with this. Should we have another sentiment? That sentiment actually can pop on the inside there. I think that works really nicely actually in those colours. Let me pop that in there now while I remember. Perfect. Okay, so there we are. We have the stencils as well. So it's a 4-piece collection. They all work individually perfectly well. They also, of course, all work together as a brilliant collection as well. So I hope you enjoyed that first look into this collection. We look forward to seeing what you make through these, and as ever, if there's any ideas or any suggestions that you want us to make any videos for us, just pop a note into the Facebook group, the Crafting with Lisa Horton Facebook group. We'd love to see you over there. It's a lovely place to share all your inspiration. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I shall see you all again soon.